200 kilometers an hour, you're on the bank, you've spotted your straight.
You can see it in front of you, it's coming, you can see the exit, yeah.
Boom.
And then when you start this, when you're full throttle, you cannot see the other end. It's 5.5 miles away.
Yeah.
You cannot see it.
Yeah.
There's also the Earth's curvature as well. It's ridiculous. You cannot see the other end.
Hello and welcome back to Kid in a Sweet Shop. In today's episode, we're back in the incredible Bugatti Chiron Super Sport with Bugatti's chief test pilot, the wonderful Andy Wallace. Last time you saw us in the car, my interview with him didn't get very far, especially when I got behind the wheel.
Oh God, I don't know what to do. I've literally forgotten how to drive. The rest of this interview is going to go so out the window now.
But today we're continuing with our chat about Andy's history with going really, really fast. So I'm with the world's fastest man in the world's fastest car. So basically what I'm doing is
the world's fastest interview. Oh my Jesus. Oh, you'll never get bored of that, would you?
You can feel the blood going out of your face, can't you?
It's utterly brilliant. Okay, I did say I was going to drive slowly so that we could finish chatting. And so I suppose what I wanted to really touch on as well is that, you know, you've now become so famous for being a test pilot and taking these incredible cars to, I mean, unfathomable speeds. And breaking records. But the first one that I remember was when you were asked to take the XJ220, and the reason why it's called the 220 is because it was supposed to go 220 miles an hour, and you were the driver that was asked to reach that huge milestone.
Yeah, and we almost made it too.
I know.
217.1.
Okay, so how did Jaguar? Was it because you were racing with them? How did that become?
Yeah, I mean, I was racing for Jaguar in 88, 89, 90.
Yeah.
And so this is when the car was being developed. So they asked me, look, can you be involved in the development from the early stage?
Yeah.
So we did 50 or 60 days in Bruntingthorpe, some road work, some track work with it. And then eventually they said, right, well, we need to do a speed run. Can you come and do that with us?
Yeah.
So we went to Fort Stockton in Texas and used their big oval. And it was quite a thrill because apart from Le Mans, I hadn't been that fast before.
Did you feel safe when you were in the XJ220? Did you feel like, right, this is really achievable?
Yes, but also I was a lot younger then, so you have such a small imagination.
So when you went to Texas with the 220, were you like, right, we're gonna get there, we're gonna
Yeah.
Because I don't think a car had gone over 200, was it at that time?
I think a car. Yeah, I think the record I think at the time was something like 212 or something like that. So somebody had done it.
Right.
Ferrari, the F40 was out at the same time. The Ferrari certainly was. I think 204 was the Ferrari.
Yes. Okay.
So there were cars around there. Yeah. But as again, because it's not, it's a road car, not a racing car, and so it is a very, very different feel.
Yeah.
And so I remember the car wandering quite a lot when we were there.
Yes.
And our tyre engineer, actually a Japanese guy from Bridgestone, Kawabata-san, I believe his name was. I took him with me in the car and showed him what was happening, and he just said, "Yep, no problem." Came back. He shaved a couple of millimetres off the tread of the tyre, went back out again.
How do you mean shaved it?
On the balancing machine with a hot knife, and just shaved a bit of tread off.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that was it. It cured it.
And then it stopped movement.
It stopped moving.
It became, wow.
Yeah, so 217. It wouldn't quite reach the 220, but...
Oh, God. And how many times did you try and get over the 217 that you managed to get?
Yeah, we probably did about 10 runs, but it was pretty much pegged. It's quite a large oval. I think it was 8 miles around.
Yeah.
So it's not like, the records I did, well, the ones in the Bugatti, we didn't actually reach VMAX because it's still climbing at the other end.
Yeah.
But in this case, we were at VMAX, so we knew, okay,
and you just
that's
knew
it.
you couldn't get any more out
No more.
of it.
Yeah, that's it.
And then absolutely this kind of huge furore that the 220 couldn't get to. Oh, stop it! Here we go again. So after you did Jaguar, then you went back to racing, or?
Yeah, so I was still racing
You're still
during
racing.
this,
Yep.
and then later on, after Jaguar, I joined Toyota, and I ended up with McLaren.
Yes.
So we're racing McLaren at Le Mans, and then so I was doing quite similar to what I'm doing at Bugatti. Actually, we were doing customer handovers with the McLaren F1,
Okay.
and then eventually, 1998, they said, "Look, we're going to do a speed record run. We'd like you to go in the McLaren F1."
In the F1.
Yeah. So we went to Erlesine, the Volkswagen Proving Ground, even though the car had a BMW engine, they allowed us to use it.
Yes.
And then we went there, and of course we did the 240.1 miles an hour, and that became a new world speed record.
So you beat yourself.
Yeah. In between that, other people had been
Yeah,
getting
nibbling away
close.
at it.
Yeah. So, and then actually the EB110, Loris Bicocchi in the EB110 ended
Yeah.
up beating the 220 time that I did.
Yeah.
I think the 220 record only stood for a little while, and then
Yeah.
he beat it with the Bugatti EB110.
Just
So,
then did it.
Yeah, and then I took it back again with the McLaren, and so.
Oh my
and,
God, this is amazing. So after
So-
you did McLaren, I mean, unbelievable. And at what point did you start working with Bugatti?
So I gave up full-time race, professional racing.
Yeah.
The last races were sort of 2011, 2012. So I joined Bugatti in 2011.
2011, okay.
Yeah. So, what's he doing?
Bloody hell. Okay, so 2011 started, and this was as a test pilot, or to do
Yeah.
the same thing to do customer handovers and and
customer
things like
drives, customer handovers, media drives.
that? Yeah.
And I was actually blown away by, it was the Veyron at the time, blown away by how fast the Veyron was.
Yes.
You know, because bearing in mind I've been racing professionally for more than 30 years and driving some incredibly fast cars,
Yes.
and then nothing quite prepares you for, a road car with more than 1,000 horsepower.
No.
It
And
is
so you came
incredible.
on board. So it's 2011, you said. So the Veyron was already in production.
Yeah,
So it
and
was
we-
coming towards the end of production.
We were just changing to the Super Sport,
Right,
the
got
Veyron
it.
Super Sport, which of course had 1,200 horsepower.
Yeah.
And then of course we did all that, and then into the Chiron, and then the whole time with the Chiron.
And did Bugatti, when they had the Veyron, did they not want to try and go for the record in the Veyron, or did
Yes.
they do it in the Veyron?
Yes, so Pierre-Henri Raffanel, so my colleague at Bugatti,
Yes.
he was tasked with doing the wheel speed record with the Veyron
the
Super
Veyron.
Sport. So he did 431 kilometres an hour, which I believe is 268 or 269 miles an hour. And he did that in 2010, I believe. Yes, 2010. And then so
Okay.
to share it around a little bit, when it came to do the Super Sport, Chiron Super Sport, or 300 plus, they asked me to do it.
They asked, they
So,
said,
yeah.
and what an honour. Okay, so when that moment happened, did you sorry, wrong way. I was going into sport. So when they asked you to do that, so the Chiron was in production?
Yeah, we were just the Chiron was in production, and this we started with Chiron, then Chiron Sport, and then eventually we have Pure Sport. Eventually we came to the Super Sport, and it will be 2. Yeah, you got it. So yeah, and this was 2019, so 3.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
We did
Okay.
this. And yeah, but it was different from the other speed records because we're now talking about over 300 miles an hour. We're talking
Yeah, so
about an
that's a big
incredible
jump.
speed.
So what was the record before you broke it? Was it in the Veyron at 250?
268 or 269 was what Pierre-Henri had done. And I think, that was probably that was the record. I mean, it's quite a long project. So,
Yeah.
and I guess in the end, I've probably got the easy part, the driving, so a lot of work goes on in the background. So,
Yes.
I mean, the first thing you need to do is you need to test the tyres up to that speed.
Of course.
So Michelin took the wheels and the tyres to the rig that they used to test the space shuttle tyres. It's the only one that could go fast enough.
Did they?
And they ran them up to way in excess of what we were going to do
Right.
to figure out, you know, what the limits were. What they decided was that although the standard Chiron tyre could cope with that speed, it was too close to the limit for them.
Yeah.
So they produced another tyre, a reinforced tyre, which is now the standard homologated tyre for the Super Sport and the 300 Plus.
Okay.
Which
so
is,
specifically made a tyre that could withstand.
Yeah, for the excess speed of
Those
the Super
forces.
Sport and the Super Sport 300 Plus.
Okay.
So then once they'd made those tyres, they brought those to the test track, and that's what we ran on exclusively.
Okay.
So that's the first thing, so tyres.
Yeah.
Now the second thing is you have to be incredibly careful with the aero balance.
Yeah.
So ideally, if it was a racing car and you had unlimited horsepower,
Yeah.
you would just put some downforce on the car and it's going to stay on the ground.
Right. As in put a bigger wing on.
Yeah, more downforce front and rear, and it's going to stay down. But you don't want any excess downforce, because that will then reduce your top speed of the tyre.
Can't go faster. Yeah.
So what they were asking for us, they were asking, could we aim for 0 downforce front and 0 downforce rear? So what we had to do was we go to the test track. We fitted the car with load sensors, and you can see how much load's on the front and how much load's on the back.
Yeah.
So you do all the 0 with the car stationary. You then do 70 kilometres an hour, 44 miles an hour, and really there's no aero load at 44 miles an hour, and just make sure that you still got 0, 0. Let's say you see at 100 miles an hour you've got X amount of lift. You need to be very careful how much lift you're going to have as the speed increases, because it goes up exponentially.
Until you.
Until you could flip over. So basically we did all this, and we kept the only thing you can adjust, because it's a production car, you can only adjust what adjusts on the normal car. So we have under the front diffuser, we have hydraulic flaps which adjust.
That's a normal
Yeah,
thing.
we have it on this car.
All Chirons. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And so basically, we could adjust that, then run again, and eventually the last time you can take a data point is 450 kilometers an hour. That's 280 miles an hour. So you have to go out and do 10 seconds or so, constant 280 miles an hour. Come back, check the numbers again. At that point, we had somewhere close to 200 kilos of lift on the front and about 150 kilos of downforce on the back.
And that was doable?
So
or
that's
that was too
still
much?
well, that's still way less lift than the static weight of the car.
Yeah.
But now you've still got to extrapolate that up to above 300 miles an hour. So they did all the calculations,
Right.
came back and they said, right, should be fine. When we're doing all this, and finally on the last run was when we did the speed. But before we were on the track, they clear everybody off the track.
I can't actually. I'm just trying to picture myself that you're in this car. It was obviously the 300 plus. So I mean, there was a few
very similar mechanically,
but almost identical to what I'm driving now. You're sitting there going round the banked bit of the track. You hit that straight. Just what's running through your mind and your head and
to set the scene, they'd already spent 5 hours with these airport cleaning mats and did a whole 20-kilometre lap of the track to clean every single.
You can't have a tiny
little everything off. Yeah.
Gravel. Okay.
This is why you really need to do these things in a controlled environment.
Yes.
Once they're happy,
controlled environment.
Yeah.
Because I mean, how long is the track?
It's 20 kilometres all the way around. You're only using the one straight to do it. There's a dogleg in the straight coming back, so you can't do the same speed. And it's 8.8 kilometres, 5.5 miles long.
Yeah.
So what you do, you go out, you put the cruise control on at 200 k's, 125 miles an hour, and you do a whole 20-kilometre lap on the cruise control. That stabilises all the temperatures and pressures in the engine, tyres, everything. And then at the end of that 20 kilometres a lap. There's a banking at each end.
Yeah.
You go up onto the banking, still on the cruise control.
Yeah.
And then you shift down from 7th to 4th. You wait until you can see the exit of the banking.
Straight. Yeah.
You're supposed to keep the speed down around 200 kilometres an hour on the banking because you do damage to the tyres with the extra G loading. And then as soon as you think you can go, I went just a bit early on that last run.
Did you?
You stamp it and then you just go and you just hold it down.
200 kilometres an hour, you're on the bank, you've spotted your straight.
You can see it in front of you, it's coming, you can see the exit,
Boom.
And then when you start this, when you're full throttle, you cannot see the other end. 5.5 miles away.
Yeah.
You cannot see it.
Yeah.
There's also the Earth's curvature as well. It's ridiculous. You cannot see the other end. But at VMAX, you are travelling at 140 metres per second. That's a kilometre in 7 seconds or a mile in 11 and a bit. And so 5.5 miles in a mile and 11 and change.
Comes up quick then.
You're there. So the speed's increasing, everything's happening really, really fast. It's all coming towards you really fast. You get a little bit of movement. There's a bit of a crosswind quite often on that track.
At what speed are you getting this movement?
I would say everything's really calm up to probably 250 miles an hour. Like it's almost
Andy,
almost
I can't
nothing.
cope. 250 miles an hour.
And I think it gets pretty serious when you cross 280, 285. Then you start. What actually happens then at that speed? On your suspension geometry, normally your caster angle in the geometry is what gives you the self-centering on the suspension. The wheels are whizzing round so fast at that speed, at over 280, 285, that the gyroscopic effect of the wheels turning overcomes the suspension geometry. So now you have a very strange feeling. So if you release your grip, instead of it self-centering, it does the exact opposite. Goes left or right. And if you need to go left or right because the wind blew you, a small amount of input brings the car in the direction you want, but it doesn't stop. So you need another one to bring it back. And so that feeling gets a little bit strange.
And very unnerving.
Yeah, and you need to do it several times to try and get your head around it because initially
your brain is probably going no, just lift.
Yeah, it does, and why is that? It's because most
self-preservation, I should think.
Well, and most times when you're driving a fast car, as long as the controls do what you expect essentially, you can stay calm. When the controls do something different to your expectations, you're like, okay, where am I? What's happening?
Yes.
Unless you're completely brain dead.
Yeah.
So it took some time, and then eventually on this last run, you just learn to trust it, and then we did. Look, it went 300 miles an hour. It got 304.7724 miles an hour, and it's still climbing. But eventually, of course, you're going to get to the banking at the other end. And it's very inadvisable to just jump on the brake.
Was longer, you could have gone quicker.
For sure, we hadn't reached VMAX. How much faster it would go, we'd have to find a longer road to try it. But yeah, so when you lift off, you've got to be very careful with the controls at that speed.
So you're concentrating. It's doing things that it shouldn't be doing. You're obviously seeing that you've gone over that 300 mile an hour barrier, and then what were you thinking? What were you feeling?
Well, obviously it was an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd been there pretty much the whole week doing all these validation of the numbers and checking everything. So this was like the climax of the week. You're just one piece of the puzzle, let's say, and you've got so many people working on this project.
What a team.
And it just, it just felt so fantastic to do it.
I know. So the fastest man in one direction, that's the technical
Yes, it was
Guinness
in one
World
direction.
Record, one direction. The fastest production car, and I'm in that car with you next to me. I mean, it's just mind-blowing.
And it's an easy car to drive that's relaxing to drive. It works with you. It's not asking any special skills, but it can do
you must
what
have
it can do.
such an emotional tie to the car because, you've put your life and limb in breaking this record, and you both looked after each other, and so you must have a strong little bond.
I do, and something sort of cropped up when I was sitting there about to do the final run, and if you reverse back to when I was 6 or 7 years old.
I thought you wanted me to reverse back. I'll take okay.
No, when I was 6 or 7 years old, and I was crazy about cars. I could name all. Excuse me, I could name all the cars as I was driving along. That's a Ford, that's a this, that's a that. And there I am. I'm sat in the Chiron about to do this 300 mile an hour run, and I'm thinking, how did I get here?
Yeah.
So how lucky was that? And I felt so fortunate to be in this position. Yes, of course it's dangerous, and we know that, but then my whole racing career was dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think with everything, look, you've been incredibly successful in many different things, so you know what it takes to be successful. And a lot of it's hard work and dedication, sure it is, but it's also surrounding yourself, with the people that are incredibly clever.
Yeah.
And we've all been in great positions with lots of people, and everything's a team game, isn't it? So yes, I drove. Yeah, you can say yes, you're the fastest driver of a production car, whatever. But I'm useless without the car, and I'm useless without all the people. So I happen to be driving the fastest car in the world.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of say to myself.
Yeah.
And it was a
So
thrill.
am I. So am I now.
No, it was great. It's wonderful. And I've been always crazy about cars. I still am.
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate to be able to work, as my job in cars.
Yeah.
I never take it for granted, and it's never just another day in the office,